All right. All I want to show you today is how to show the patients their behavioral performance, which basically means how do we take their log files, their output from their behavioral responses, and generate some patterns of their performance. So we'll do a couple steps along this way. Ultimately, we're going to work in Excel, which is this sheet here, and we've created this calculator sheet with all this good stuff over here that's going to, and these will auto-populate based on a bunch of formula we've pre-written. We're going to end up pasting some data into these columns. Now, in order to get it, we're going to paste it in from this tab here called All Tests, and we're going to put it there in sort of a concatenated master list from these individual test sessions: Test 1, Test 2, Test 3, and Test 4. So those are the worksheet tabs: T1, T2, T3, and T4. For the purposes of conversation today, don't worry about these tabs for the implicit memory. That's a different analysis that you won't have to bother with. We'll take care of that on our side. So we want to put data into each of these tabs from our tests. So in this case, we have our log files from each of those 4 respective test sessions. So they're going to live basically in this folder for our experiment. In this case, it's going to be experiment 010 or perhaps 011, depending on which version you're running. And it's going to have these 4 different outputs of just simple log files. So what I'm going to basically do is, we've kind of showed where they're stored here. We're next going to work on how we convert them and take those and port them into Excel. Next step, we're going to concatenate them into one long master list. We're going to do a little bit of work with them via this column to text function in Excel. And then it's just an easy copy-paste job into our data input calculator. So that's basically the overview. Let's just dive right in. Test 1. Basically, highlight everything, Control A, Control C to copy it, and paste it in cell A1 for test 1. And close that. Done. We're done. Test 2, same thing. Copy. Put it into test 2, A1, paste. All right, now let's do test 3. Close that out. All, copy, paste. Test 4. Copy, paste. We can close that down, and we don't need this anymore, and we can kind of stretch this out if we need to. Okay, so now we have our 4 lists. So what we need to do is concatenate them into a master list. So let's just start with test 1. We'll copy that. We'll paste that there. In test 2, we'll scroll down to the bottom, or I should say we might as well just copy test 2. And in test 1 here, we'll scroll down and just paste that sucker right underneath there. And we can bring that down to the next session. 3, copy that, paste it into the bottom there. And now we just got to finish up with test session 4. Highlight all that. Highlight all that. Let's just say it all, copy, and we'll paste that in the bottom here. There we go. So we paste that there. Now we've got our master list. Okay, so let's grab all of that now, and what we'll see actually is that we've got these 3 pieces of information: the item, exactly what it is, and then of course an event code. So 3 pieces of information. So what we need to do is create insert 2 columns. And we're going to take this column D, or delta, go to data tab, text to columns, delimited, and we'll delimit it by space, and hit finish. So what that did, that spread this out. So now they're each in their own respective conditions. And at that point we can just grab each of these, columns A through O, Control C for copy, and now we're going to move into Data Input tab. We paste them into cell A1, and what we find out is that it automatically self-populates everything we need to in our analysis, and it will create our automatically populated analyses. Now, one thing you can queue into is if you want, say, performance. In this case, this would be hits minus false alarm, and we can see that that formula is drawing from this hits minus false alarms and that proportion thereof, and we we see that they are performed at about 47%. In this case, chance would be at 0. So you can see they're above this diagonal line of chance in the ROC curve. We can quantify the distribution of the responses for old items on the old scale or new items on the new scale. And those will be the main metrics you'll show them, probably your percentage of hits, false alarms, perhaps their ROC performance, or their distribution of responses there. So that's the main thing. We look at reaction times down here in sort of this orange shaded background, and those will self-populate too for the most part. So you can show them that if they're responding differentially. And that's kind of the idea. Later on, you can upload these data files and send them to us, or just send us the raw log files, and we'll take care of all this processing on our side. And ultimately what we end up doing is having these cells here, which draw from all of our calculator outputs, and we will copy them as a summary of that subject's performance in all sorts of conditions. We would copy that and paste it into a different worksheet that we've built that collates group level performance. And so we just paste it down sequentially line by line per subject, and we get with our basic data results for behavior. So that's that. If you have any questions, you can hit me up. I'm at richard.adante@csusb.edu, and that's the basic intro for what we would do. As you can see, it just takes a moment or two, probably a lot quicker than what we just did, because you wouldn't have to explain it so much. So a little bit of copy paste, pretty easy. I'm sure there's some MATLAB scripting that can facilitate that even quicker, but this works, so we can use it. Anyways, that's that, and hit me up if you have any questions or problems with it.